All right. So yeah, I decided if we are going to be supporters of inmates, we need to know how an inmate lives and what an inmate does. So I came up with this today called The Life of an Inmate. As volunteers of Dismiss, we support former inmates and their families. The question I have is this: do you really know what you are supporting? As a former inmate myself, I know that there are many things that you may not know about what's going on in our heads. There are many things that we might or might not tell you that we're thinking or that we have experienced. I've heard many people tell me, "Oh, I know about inmates. I drive by the jail every day." Okay, so you know what the outside of the jail looks like. Do you know what they are thinking while they're in there? Do you know what they have seen? Do you know how they live? Chances are you don't actually know the answers to any of these questions. I want to give you a little sneak peek of what and who you are supporting. I want you to see from an actual inmate perspective what you have signed up for. Life on the inside. When you're on the inside, you've got two ways you can live. One is with and one is without God. If you live without God in your life, usually you are miserable. You think negative about everything, and you don't see any good in anything. If you live with God in your life, then it's the opposite. You see the silver lining, you see the good in people, you see the positive looking ahead. Like when I was in, I knew I was getting out. So that was my focal point, the day I'm getting out of here. So time went by, no problem, but I talked to guys that were in half the time as me, who did not have God in their life, and a month took 10 years to go by. Me, 5 years went by in about 3.5 months. When the inmates have things called lockdowns, lockdowns are not fun because you are locked into a cell that is approximately 6 by 10. If you're lucky, there'll be you alone or one other guy. For the longest time, and I understand they're still doing it, there's 3 or more people in that 6 by 10 cell. When I was in there, we had 3 of us. One slept on the upper bunk, one slept on the bottom bunk, and one slept with his head near the toilet. Because that was all there was to do. There was nowhere else to sleep. When there's lockdowns, you don't get out of that cell, which means you don't have showers. You don't get phone calls. You don't get to move around and exercise because you don't get yard time. These guys will, oh yes, and also those phone calls that they get are a collect call. So every time I called my parents, it costs whatever the collect call is, and you're cut off after 20 minutes. It's not the jail doing that. That is the phone company, which I'm going to assume it was Bell with me. They shut you down at 20 minutes. No more, no less. Then we have pen pals. Pen pals are great. You know what pen pal is like. You write to the inmates. It's great. But the catch is, every letter that gets written to an inmate and every letter the inmate writes out, the guards read them. So they're very limited on what they can say either way. So if I'm getting a letter and the guards don't like what's in it, it mysteriously never showed up. And vice versa. If I sent a letter out to someone and the guards didn't like what was in it, it never left the property. It ended up in file 13 of the garbage. Food. Always a great subject. Because I would take hospital food over jail food any day. Jail food was cardboard boxes warmed over. Now, I don't know what they're like now. I've been out of the system for 7 years. Actually, I've been out of the provincial system since 2016. So, 9 years I've been out of that. I'm not even going to go into the federal side because we do want to go home tonight. But the food is... Oh, yes, and also, if you don't like what the food is, you serve. A lot of guys served. I did. For the first 4 months I was there, I never ate anything. I went down to 87 pounds. In the first 3 to 4 months I was there, I had no weight. When I started eating, within the first year, I was over 155 pounds. I went up 4 pant sizes in 1 year. Yeah. So, once you do eat, then you eat. And you gain weight very fast because you're eating all that food, but you're not getting the exercise. Which brings me to yard time. You would think that they would give you yard time, give you fresh air. Well, no. If the guards deem that they are understaffed, there's no yard. I went 6 months with no yard time. And then when they finally gave it to us, we got 15 minutes in a small yard, maybe the size of that part of the room. 42 guys standing in that little area trying to get exercise and trying to get fresh air. Physics. Physics are very hard because you, 3 days a week? 3 days a week, 2 days a week, because you were allowed 2 20-minute visits or 1 40-minute visit a week. We get the 2 20 minutes only because it spread it out. But there were guys that got visits once a week. They get their 40 minutes, didn't get to see them again for another week. It's not only hard on the inmates, it's hard on the family and the friends and the spouses and the kids and whatnot. I would not want my son to ever have to see me that way. Excuse me. There's not much of anything to do. A chapel, if the guards don't like your rank, they forget that you're there and you don't get chapel time. Unless the chaplain gets in there and says, wait a minute, I haven't seen this range in a while. Why not? Oh, they don't deserve it today. Whether you do or not. These are all things that happen, but as supporters of these inmates, we never hear about it. Because these are things they keep in their heads. Things that they see in there that you only see on TV, maybe. Like, I saw a guy jump off the top balcony in the rink and gone. I won't go any further. These are things you do not remove from your brain. But we don't talk about it when we come out. So as supporters of the jails and the prisons, we don't well, you guys, I'm going to say in general, whether it's here or out there, whatever, they don't see. Even the guys that go inside to volunteer don't see anything, because like when I went to Joyceville last week, and I got to talk to 2 sets of inmates. But I got to talk to them in a controlled environment, in a chapel, for an hour or so at a time. Then they leave. I never see where their range is. I never see the lifestyle they're living. All I see are these happy people with happy faces, but when they leave the chapel, I guarantee their faces no longer are happy. Because they know they're heading back to a range that they're going to be locked into for whoever knows how long. Until maybe they call for yard duty. The range I spoke to on Monday, they might get chapel again in 2-3 months, because there's 27 ranges at Joyceville, and there's only 4 chapels a week. So split that up. It's not like you and I. Every Sunday you go to church, I go to church. They don't. They might have a Bible with them. If they've had the nerve to ask the chaplain for a Bible, then they'll have a Bible, or they'll be doing the Bible study. I mark assignments for New Life Prison Ministry, and sometimes when I'm reading them, they'll have a little comment section after all the questions, and some of the things that they ask, if I hadn't been a former inmate, it would almost turn my stomach. Like, some of them would say, what's the weather like outside? I haven't been outside in 3 months. Like, seriously. I'm not saying this tonight to scare anybody, but it's a reality. Like, I've talked to too many people that they say they want to get into ministry. Now, I know Tony knows a fair amount about the inmates and that. I don't know how much, but I know you know a bit. And I know there's people that do pen paling back and forth or marking assignments or whatnot. But unfortunately, unless you've actually been on those ranges, this is where the mental health part comes in. Because, as everybody knows, last week was 7 years I walked out of the gates. I wake up still some nights in a pile of sweat because I still get nightmares of things I've seen in there, things I've done in there, things I've eaten in there, whatnot. It's literally hell. But when I was there last week, I came right out and told these guys, if you don't get rid of the jail mentality, then I guarantee when I go back in to volunteer again, I'll be seeing those same guys. If you put God first and you allow God to lead you through your jail time, I'm not going to say I won't see you here, but there's less of a chance that I'll see you here. Because that's how I got through. I couldn't care less about God when I went in. I knew He was there. I'd been to Bible, Sunday school. I've done all the routine, and that's all it was. It was a routine. When my father passed away, that's when everything flipped. And that's when I started devoting myself to God, and time went by so much quicker. It did. Seriously, it went by like no problems. Did I have mental problems? Darn right. Because no matter if you put God first or you don't put God first, you still have those visions of things you've seen. My wife has to deal with my PTSD from it, which I have never been officially diagnosed with. I actually got told, you've been to jail, suck it up. Yeah, and from that day on, I refused to get help because I don't need to be reminded I've been to jail. I was there. Now, writing this down, this thing was supposed to be a lot longer than it really is. But I'm getting a little more emotional than I thought I would doing this. The next line I'm going to give might sound harsh, but I said when someone gets out, chances are they're not going to tell you everything. They might even sugarcoat it to make it sound like it's not as bad as it really is. You need to remember that sometimes your ears will work better than your mouth. Since you have never been there, you will never truly know what to say. Now, I know that sounded bad, but as human beings, we want to fix things. And unfortunately, we can't fix. I can't even. I still meet up with former inmates for coffee at Tim Hortons, and some of the things that they tell me, I couldn't even fathom, and I was there. Because I tell the guys same thing. My situation, buddy here's been to jail, he lived it different than I did. I was pretty lucky. I went through it without no major, well, except for the few suicides and whatnot. But some of these guys spent 90% of their time in the hole. That's another mental health. When you're stuck in a hole, you're locked up for 23 and a half hours. That half hour is to get out, have your shower, and your phone call. All within that half hour, and boom, you're back in. So when guys get out and I'm talking to them, first thing I ask them is, A, do you know God? Now that goes two ways. If they say no, then I say, okay, do you want to know God? And if they say yes, great, we'll talk. And I'll say to them, okay, tell me what you know. Because I'm not going to start preaching like crazy because that's just going to turn them away from me. But if they tell me they know God, then I'm going to say, okay, did you know him on the inside? Because I turned to God when I was on the inside. Because like I said, I knew him. I knew of him. I knew it was a 3-letter word, and he sat in the back seat of my car. I did what I wanted to do. Well, God meets us no matter where we are, no matter what depths of hell you're in. God's there. He got there before you did. Wow. When I found God myself, or I should say when God finally found me, because God was never lost, I broke right down. Because I knew that I had to change something. I had to either continue the path I'm going, and if I did, I wouldn't be here today talking to you guys because I'd probably either be back in jail or dead. One or the other. Or I'm going to find God and say, okay, find out what I need to do. It'd be amazing how many doors God's opened. God put me at Christmas, which was a roller coaster ride because as everybody knows, I was contemplating quitting. Well, then God put me at Joyceville. I met 5 inmates that knew Dismiss already. They were part of the Toronto Dismiss. And they told me the things that Toronto was doing for them and helping their families while they're on the inside. And it gave me a new perspective. And I came home last week on Monday, and I'm like, I can't leave Dismiss because it's where I need to be. So, I don't know how to end it. Well, I know how to end it. I'm going to end it at the back of the New English Translation Bible, which they call it the Keys to Freedom Bible. Hebrews 13:3 is in there. And it says, continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering. So, again, I didn't want this tonight to be a scare tactic, but if you're volunteering to support something, I'm hoping I gave you a little bit of an insight to exactly what it is. To me, it's the same thing. If you're going to volunteer to help a hockey team out, but you don't know the first thing about hockey, you're in the wrong place. Well, this here, just a small bit of what the guys that are never getting out. I never touched on that. The guys that they get out, but they don't have your family to meet them at the gate. They don't have the support from the outside to help them along. I was very blessed to meet Tony, not in person. We wrote back and forth with the mail. Believe it or not, we get mail, not email. I was so happy the day I got out and I met Tony in person at Tim Hortons. People don't have that. They don't know what it means to have somebody that cares for them. So as volunteers, when we are going to volunteer and we're going to help them along, we just need to listen to them. We need to hear their story and what they've got to say. So I will leave it at that. I'll stop the recording for this part, but if anybody does have any questions, ask away. If I had to ask one question tonight, and anybody can answer it, is, did you actually learn anything tonight? All right.